Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Broadcasting live from the dark and cold dungeons deep beneath the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prepare yourselves to be taken away into another dimension as we now have control over your thoughts, fears, and perspective of the unexplained world you dare not speak of. With your hosts, Lindsay Knight and Michael Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the gates to the paranormal and beyond.
Broadcasting live from the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is the Paranormal and Beyond. When it comes to urban legends, these are incredible stories that are sometimes scary or sometimes funny, on which holds a small piece of plausibility to them. Urban legends contain many folkloric elements and quickly spread throughout the community or society. These tales are usually told so dramatically as if these stories are true and have happened to real people. But whether these stories are true or not, it's up to the listeners to decide. So gather around the digital campfire and turn off all your lights as we get into the most terrifying urban legends that will definitely raise the hairs on the back of your neck when we return right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
Your ticket to the unknown is at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. Nights with a K, ParanormalResearchSociety.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Nights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com, you're going to believe. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight, for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knights Paranormal Research Society.com. This is the Paranormal and Beyond, and it's your show. Call us at 731-1230. Here again, Lindsay and Michael.
Welcome back to another brand new and legendary edition of the Paranormal and Beyond. But first, be sure to check us out at NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com, where you can link up to all the past shows by simply clicking on that archive link above. That's NightsParanormalResearchSociety.com. Do you want to star in your own movie? Well, start acting by acting right now. log on to HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Once again, that's HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Special shout out to all those listening online through the KLAV1230AM.com website, and all those driving around in the Vegas Valley listening to us on your stereos. Thank you very much. I'm Michael Knight. Alongside of me is your hostess, the princess of the darkness, Lindsay Knight. How are you doing?
I'm doing well as always, but it's funny that you call me the princess of darkness because you had just called me Elvira.
Well, yeah. Do you look like her? I don't know.
I don't think so.
Too bad I can't show people. Anyways, we have a great...
That was terrible.
Anyways, we have a great show for you today, as we're going to talk about some urban legends. Some of these legends you've heard, but a lot of these legends are what scares people today, and it branches off to different levels, different interpretations. But these are what gives you the heebie-jeebies, the stuff that's under your bed, the stuff that's in the dark, and all that kind of good stuff that raises the hair in back of your head. Maybe your arms too as well. Hey, the whole body. Who cares? Lindsay, you ready? All right, let's get into the news.
Topping the news for the Paranormal and Beyond this Friday, October 18th. In Sarasota, Florida, police said a Southgate Mall was shut down temporarily for more than 2 hours when 25 police officers and 10 fire trucks investigated a powdery substance thrown into a LensCrafters by a man whose name was not released. Investigators determined the substance was the ashes of the man's late fiancée. He walked into LensCrafters with the ashes of his deceased fiancée, threw a handful into the store, and left. He had no idea what he had done, and actually he had stated that she had passed away not too long ago, but he is not being charged, and he is actually being told he can have grief counseling. In other news, this is up to you to decide, and you be the judge whether this is just plain ridiculous or weird or justified. A traveling circus visiting the town of Layton is pretty upset. Posters for the circus were removed from a town after a woman with a clown phobia told council officials that the pictures terrified her. Officials at Layton Buzzard Town Council said it took down adverts for John Lawson's circus after one complaint in a town of 28,000 people. A female resident told the authorities she was coulrophobia, a fear of clowns, and the posters were scaring her whenever she drove past them. The council removed all the posters and told the circus they would only be able to perform there again if they promised not to use the clowns on their promotional material. Reporting the news for the Paranormal and Beyond, this is Lindsay Knight. Okay, that is just strange. So you're telling me 28,000 people in this town and one person complains that they have coulrophobia, and then all of a sudden the council says, enough is enough, take down all those posters?
Well, I'm telling you, man, those carnies scare the hell out of me too. So, but I don't get why people are afraid of clowns. They're supposed to make and cheer people up. And I don't know why they get so scared of it. And the other story, the ashes. Didn't you report one earlier about a guy in a car that had ashes? So why you dump him in a LensCrafters? This guy wanted to have his ashes spread at LensCrafters?
That is strange, isn't it?
That is just totally weird. Well, that's the news. Weird news indeed.
But speaking of strange and speaking of clowns...
Yeah, we're going to start our urban legends, and perfect since the news about clowns. And this is probably why people are scared of clowns. All right, first of all, let me get into what an urban legend is. It's basically a story that has been passed down throughout time. However, these stories are so in the now, so it can't be that long. But they do hold plausibility because a lot of these stories have been confirmed as being true, but nobody really knows where. So I take these stories, some of them are just too out there, but hey, this is a weird world, so it doesn't surprise me in the least out of all these stories. So let's get into first one, and it's all about clowns.
Well,
are you scared of clowns?
You know, I'm not scared of clowns at all, but I don't understand how people are scared of clowns. But this story right here, I truly believe that this is something that really did happen.
Yeah.
Even though it's an urban legend and I don't know where it derived from, but you know, I'm ready to tell the story if you are.
Well, yeah, it's a great story. Wait, there's two versions to this though, right?
Oh yeah.
And we had to pick the most craziest version to talk
Well,
about.
before we talk about this clown story, there's one urban legend that is, for me, that always stays in my mind, and that's the one of Carol. If you could just really quick tell that story.
Oh, that's the one about Jack the Ripper?
Yes.
Thanks
for spoiling it for everybody, by the way.
Well, that's the old one. We're talking back back when Jack the Ripper was killing people. And basically, it was during Christmas, and a girl named Carol was missing. But everybody was scared to open their doors because Jack the Ripper. I mean,
This is in London, by the way.
well, where was he at? Of course, it's London. This is a copycat in California. Well, back in London. So they got together in town and made a code that in order for people to open their doors, they would sing Christmas songs, and everybody knew it was okay, and it wasn't Jack the Ripper who was out there waiting to like skin them alive. But that's how you get today the Christmas Carol, and evolved from Jack the Ripper. So, some of the things out there, these urban legends, are basically origins and hold truth in the matter. So that's a good point, and a lot of people don't know that. They're like, oh my God, Christmas Carol, it's Christmas. It has a tie to something so dark. Yes, everything has a tie to some dark side. Well, let's get into the clown.
A few years ago, there was a wealthy couple who had 2 young children, a boy and a girl. The family lived in a large house in Newport Beach, California. After taking care of their kids all week, the mother and father decided that they needed a break, so they booked a table for dinner at a nice restaurant. That evening, they called a teenage girl they knew and arranged for her to come over and babysit their children while they were out. When the babysitter arrived, the parents told her to fix supper for the kids and put them to bed. After that, you can just go upstairs and watch TV and help yourself to the fridge. And if you wouldn't mind, said the mother, could you watch TV in our bedroom? The kids have been having nightmares recently, so if you hear them crying, you can just go in and calm them down. The babysitter happily agreed, and the parents left for their dinner date. The girl gave the children some milk and cookies, then ushered them upstairs to bed. She started to read to them a bedtime story, of course, and before long, the little boy and girl were fast asleep. After tucking them in, she switched off the lights and went to watch TV. When the babysitter walked into the parents' bedroom and sat down, she noticed that there was a creepy-looking clown statue standing in the corner of the room. She tried to ignore it, but it looked so eerie and disturbing that it sent a chill down her spine. She felt as though its eyes were staring straight at her while she watched TV. As time passed, the babysitter started to feel more and more uneasy about the clown statue. Whenever she glanced at it, she got the unsettling feeling that it had moved ever so slightly. Finally, the clown statue began to freak her out so much that she couldn't handle it any longer. She decided to go downstairs and phone the parents. When she dialed the number they had left for her, the mother answered. "Hi, it's me," said the babysitter. "Everything's fine. The kids are fast asleep in bed, but I was just wondering, would it be okay if I watch TV downstairs?" "Of course," replied the father. "But why?" "I know it sounds silly," laughed the girl, "but the clown statue is really creeping me out." "The clown statue?" asked the father. "Yeah, the clown statue up in your bedroom," the girl replied. The phone went silent for a moment. "Listen to me very carefully," said the father. "Take the children and get out of the house. We will call the police. Go now." "What's wrong?" asked the girl. The father gulped and replied, "We don't have a clown statue." For a second, the babysitter just stood there, stunned. Then she dropped the phone and raced upstairs and grabbed the children. Carrying one each arm, she raced downstairs again and fled into the street. Huddled on the sidewalk, comforting the 2 children, the babysitter looked up at the bedroom window and saw something that made her scream. Out of horror, peeking through a gap in the curtains, was the white painted face of a clown. It stared at her for a moment and then sank back into the darkness. Within minutes, the police arrived and cautiously entered the house. In the upstairs bedroom, they found a man dressed in a clown suit. When they arrested him, they found a knife concealed in his costume. The clown turned out to be a mentally disturbed middle-aged man who was a convicted murderer and cold-blooded killer. The evil man had been stalking the family for months, lurking in their attic during the daytime and coming out to sneak around the house at night. For weeks, the children had been complaining about a clown statue that stood in their room and watched them sleep, but the parents just dismissed this as nightmares.
Well, that's a story. See, now we're talking about clowns, but it is not more of the way the clown looks, but the oddness about it is a creeper in your bedroom. And there's a lot of people that have stories like this. It echoed throughout time that kids report seeing somebody in the room. And we're not talking about paranormal. It's somebody either hiding in the attic who comes down to basically torment children while they sleep, or they jump through the window. Another story that's gruesome and graphic was the story of the Villisca Axe murder house, where they killed 6 children and 2 adults, a total of 8 people, where this killer axe-wielding guy was hiding in the attic with an axe and waited for this terrible family to go to sleep. Wait, not terrible family, but this poor family to go to sleep, where they hacked him to death.
But see, I don't know if I could really derive this as an urban legend. Maybe the whole clown situation, I can see that. But I mean, like, this is stuff that really does happen. You know what I mean? And why? I mean, like, the fact, like, with the One Missed Call, that movie about the babysitter, and you know how the story goes, and they call from the house. I mean, it's
do you know
similar.
that Missed Call or One Last Call, that movie is based upon an urban legend of the babysitter who's actually, you know, going to his house for the first time, and then starts receiving phone calls on her cell phone, and then the police trace it and finds out it's from within the house, and she's basically getting stalked from within the house. But this whole thing about a clown, yeah, it gives a little creepy factor to it, that, you know, these kids are reporting seeing a clown, and then parents are like, get out.
Well, this is, you know, I'm going to just say this one real quick because this is a real fast story, and I just want to put it out there. This is probably my favorite urban legend. And a lot of people don't really know about this urban legend, but this is about a couple who went to Mexico, and they were sitting at a park bench, and they actually saw a dog, but it was really dirty, but it was, you know, it was really cute. It was really small. And so they said, oh my God, this, you know, this poor thing, you know, there's a lot of strays animals in, you know, Mexico. So they decided to take it past the border with them, and they hid it inside one of the luggages. And as soon as they passed it, then they opened it up and took this little dog out. And when they took it home, they said, oh my God, it keeps sneezing, and so it must be sick. So we obviously have to take it to the vet. And when they took it to the vet, the doctor who came in was like horrified because he couldn't believe what he saw. And he was like, oh my God. And they were like, well, you know, where did you get this animal? And they said, oh, we found it in Mexico. You know, we just wanted to help it, so we took it home. But we noticed that it was sick as soon as we got here. So we tried, you know, doing whatever we could. But we noticed that it needed a vet, possibly a shot. And he said, well, what you have here is an oversized rat with rabies.
Oh, God. Give it to Mexico to have dogs perpetrate acts. Yeah, the Mexican rat's even trying to get into the United States, huh? Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
I'm sorry, but that was just, that's an urban legend.
But who are these people who can't,
decipher that this
separate a rat from a dog? What kind of rat was this? They thought it was like a chihuahua?
It said it had a cute face. I don't know. Anyways, let's get back into the rest of the urban legend. All right,
here's an urban legend that, I mean, it echoes out through the paranormal, and as well as the biggest fear factor when people are driving alone in the dark in a long road, and it's called the backseat driver. One night, a woman went out for drinks with her girlfriends. She left the bar fairly late at night, got in her car, and onto the deserted highway. After a few minutes, she noticed a lone pair of headlights in the rearview mirror, approaching at a pace slightly quicker than hers. As the car pulled up behind her, she glanced and saw the turn signal on. The car was going to pass, when suddenly it swerved back behind her, pulling up dangerously close to her tailgate, and the brights flashed. Now she was getting nervous. The lights dimmed for a moment, and then the brights came back on again, and the car behind her surged forward. The frightened woman struggled to keep her eyes on the road and fought the urge not to look back at the car behind her. Finally, her exit approached it, but continued to follow, flashing her brights periodically. Throughout the spotlight and turn, it followed her until she pulled into her driveway. She figured her only hope was to make a mad dash into the house and call the police. As she flew from the car, so did the driver of the car behind her, and she screamed, "Lock your door and call the police. Call 911. Baffled on why this woman said this, she figured when the police arrived, the horrible truth was finally revealed to the woman. The man in the car had been trying to save her. As she pulled behind her and the headlights illuminated to her car, he saw a silhouette of a man with a butcher's knife raising from the back seat to stab her. So he flashed his brights to figure that it would distract him from killing her. The moral of this story is, look behind your seat. You never know who's back there. Or have a good car alarm.
That's a famous urban legend, but that, I don't know. I think that's probably that really happened.
Tell me how many times you drove and looked in your rearview mirror and seen who's sitting behind the back seat. Have you done that?
All the time.
Well, see, you're paranoid. You're schizophrenic. I do it only once because if something's back there. See, this story also gets paranormal because then we can relate this to the story of the Chicago ghost at the cemetery, Resurrection Mary, who they pick up. And these are all that echoes throughout that a lot of people are driving on deserted road. The Pali Lookout in Hawaii. They turn back, they see an old lady sitting behind them, and it's just freaky stuff. Especially when you're alone at night in your car and you turn back.
Well, this was an axe-wielding maniac, right?
No, this guy with a butcher knife, but hey, same thing. Still sharp objects that can kill you.
Well, here's another story. This is an urban legend. Not really famous, but this is a scary one. Not really scary, but sad.
Make up your mind, woman.
I would say both, possibly. Okay, so back in 1975, a young couple, both 18, decided to get married right after high school. The father of the bride lived in Palm Beach in a mansion and was able to afford a big wedding for them. To make a long story short, they got married and the wedding was beautiful. Very happy. After the wedding, they had a big reception in an old building and everyone got pretty drunk. When there were only about 20 people left, the groom decided what they should play hide and seek. So everyone agreed and the groom was it. They all went and hid and the game went on. After about 20 minutes later, though, everyone had been found except for the bride. Everyone looked everywhere and tore the whole place apart. Looking for her, nobody can find her. I mean, like, she was just completely
Nobody.
gone. Poof, she's gone.
Nobody.
And so a couple weeks later, it got to the point that he was just heartbroken, so sad. Thought she either, took off, but he knew something was, she vanished somehow, but he couldn't do anything about it. So he tried to go on with his life. Come 3 years later, a little old woman was cleaning the place up. She happened to be in the attic and saw an old trunk. She dusted it off, and by curiosity, she opened it up. She screamed at the top of her lungs and ran out the building. When, lo and behold, what did she see inside? She saw a body. The bride had decided to hide in the trunk for the game of hide and seek. When she sat down, she hit her head. The trunk closed on her and locked, knocking her unconscious. She suffocated after a day or so. When the woman found her, she was rotting, her mouth in the shape of a scream.
Wow, that is creepy. That is creepy. But it's understandable. See, so the guy thinks that, she was like, I don't love this guy. I'm going to take off while we're playing hide and seek. I'm going to make my exit. Lo and behold, she's like the best hide and seeker out there and won the game with with deadly results. That's very scary. It goes to show people out there, well, this had to be in 1975. Who plays hide and seek now after your reception?
I have another one real quick. I love urban legends, okay? Here's a story. This went way back into, I would say, the 1930s. This is about a girl who wanted to go to the dance. Not Resurrection Mary, but this is a girl who wanted to go to a dance, but her parents could not afford to buy her a dress, of course, and something really, nice. So what her mother did was when she came home from school, she said, I want you to go into your bedroom. I have a surprise for you. And she said, oh my God, what is it? And she goes, you're going to be able to go to this dance that you want to go to, and I bought you a dress. So she went into this room or her bedroom, and she saw there was this white gown. It looked like a wedding dress almost, but it wasn't. And, she didn't tell her daughter where she bought it. She just said, I want you to go to this dance and have a good time. That night, her daughter got really sick and she was sweating at the dance. And after dancing with this guy, for a couple hours, whatnot, she collapsed and died. Come to find out, the dress that her mom had purchased was at a secondhand store, and it was actually a burial dress, where it was changed out, but it was mixed in with formaldehyde.
Oh, embalming fluid.
Embalming fluid.
Oh,
right.
So she like tweaked to death.
Yeah.
That's why she was sweating. And you're ruining it for people out there. They're like, I'm not going to Savers no more to buy any old
still going
dresses. There's an urban legend like that too. And here's one. There's this, and it has to do again with burial and stuff like this. Well, this woman, her husband died, and she took him to, the funeral home. And as the funeral parlor was dressing him up, and she came to look at him because it was an open casket, and this was supposed to be a viewing. She didn't like he was dressed in a blue suit. So she told the embalmer, that I didn't like this. The mortician said, okay, what do you want? She goes, he wanted to die in a brown suit and not a blue suit. This is cheesy. I don't like it. I'm not going to pay for the burial. I don't know how that's possible, but anyways, so he said it wasn't going to be till maybe 2 days later, till the viewing was there in the reception. Well, she comes back, and lo and behold, the husband's there, opening the coffin, laid out with a nice brown suit. So she was very happy. Oh my God, my husband's going to be happy, And then the viewing started. All the relatives came, blah, blah, blah. It was a great, ceremony. Well, after that, because of the shortness of time and dressing somebody as hard when they're dead, she asked the mortician, where did you get the suit from? And I'm sorry you went through all this trouble to change out my husband's blue suit. He said, oh, it wasn't no trouble at all. We just switched out the heads from a different body wearing a brown suit. Now, that is crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy.
Oh, yeah. I wonder if you got in trouble for that.
I don't know. But you know what? As long as it passed, they're dead. Who's going to complain?
Do I have time for another urban legend? Because this one's going to be a little bit longer. I have so many favorites.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So this takes place in an old folks' home. And this consists of 3 old men. These 3 old men have been confined to their bed, and they've been there for about 5 years or so. Okay, so they're like best friends through and through. Okay, now one of them, they really can't see that far, from each other. So one of them is.
Their eyes are wacky already.
No, they're like a little bit. They're not too close to each other. Okay, so. The furthest one, they want to get to the window.
The one 2 miles away. How far you gotta be? I'm sorry, go ahead.
They can talk to each other, but they're not too close. But there's one guy, whenever one's gonna pass, the next one's gonna get to go look out the window.
Oh, they get rights to the window.
They get rights to the window. Okay, so there's one guy who's been there for the past about 5 years. Somebody's died, and so now he had his turn at the window. But he's looking out this partition, and he keeps telling them, you've seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, where they're laying in the bed and one of them looks out and says, oh, I can see this and that. Well, the one guy tells his 2 buddies, hey, you gotta, one day one of you is gonna be here in the, to look out this window. And he tells them every day stories of what he sees. He sees people walking, people feeding the birds, the sun is shining, all different things, and oh my God, everybody, the 2 guys are like, I can't wait to get to the window. I can't wait to get to the window.
Can you hurry up and die, please?
So, the one guy dies, okay? Or no, he's not, he's gonna die. They know his time is almost up. So now the last guy knows that, he'll be dead before he ever gets to that window. So he makes up a plan to kill his friend in the middle. 1, 2, 3. So he kills the second guy to get to the window. And he's like, I don't care if I don't have anybody to talk to as long as I'm looking out the window. So he's like, yes, guy gets killed. He finally gets to look out the window. The first day that he's laying in his bed and he's moved to that window, he notices that it's nothing but a brick wall with curtains. And the guy has just been imagining and making up stories the whole time.
Talk about your senile old people.
So now he has nobody to talk to.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about more urban legend stories that'll creep you out when we return right here on the Talk of Las Vegas. KLAV 1230 AM.
Let's hear your ghost stories at 731-1230. That's 731-1230. The Paranormal and Beyond continues after this. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Your ticket to the unknown is at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Knights with a K, Paranormal Research Society.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Knights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, you're going to believe. Welcome back to the Paranormal and Beyond. Join us at 731-1230. Here again, Lindsay and Michael.
If you're just tuning into the Paranormal and Beyond, we are talking about urban legends. Don't forget to log on to Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com and listen to all those missed past shows when you get a chance. Once again, that's Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. All right, let's continue on with these urban legends. Some of these are very, very scary urban legends. I love them. Hope a lot of little kids out there aren't listening, because this will be the last time they'll be logging on to the show, or their parents will be like, get off the radio, don't listen to them, they're naughty. All right, we're going to talk about one that has to do with being in the dark. A lot of people are scared of the dark, but mainly not because of the dark, but because of what's in the dark when you can't see. Two dorm mates in college were in the same science class. The teacher had just reminded them about the midterm the next day when one dorm mate, let's call her Julie, got asked to do this big bash by the hottest guy in school. The other dorm mate, Meg, had pretty much no interest in going, and being the diligent student, she took notes on what the midterm was about. After the entire period of flirting with her date, Julie was totally apprehended for her test, while Meg was completely prepared for a major study date with her books. At the end of the day, Julie spent hours getting ready for the party while Meg started studying. Julie tried to get Meg to go, but she was insistent that she would study and pass the test. The girls were rather close, and Julie didn't like leaving Meg alone to be bored while she was out having a blast in the time of her life. Julie finally gave up, using the excuse that she would cram in homeroom the next day to study for her test. Julie went to the party and had the time of her life with her date. She headed back to the dorm room around 2 a.m. and decided not to wake Meg. She went to bed nervous about the midterm and decided she would wake up early to ask Meg for help. She woke up and went to wake Meg up. Meg was lying on her stomach, apparently sound asleep. Julie rolled Meg over to reveal Meg's terrified face. Julie, concerned, turned to the desk lamp. Meg's study stuff was still open and had blood all over it. Meg had been slaughtered. Julie, in horror, fled to the floor and looked up to see, written on the wall in Meg's blood, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the lights last night while you slept?" All right, that's a story where you have somebody being sacrificed in the dark while leaving somebody to be. People call that a professional hit. They don't care about the one living. But yeah, that's freaky. And there's a lot of movies that's basically in that scenario about somebody getting killed in the dark while their friend slept. Have you heard that before, Lindsay?
Oh, yeah, plenty of times.
Yeah, it's a very, very scary story. And like I said, whether or not you like to sleep in the dark, make sure your windows are locked and make sure you have a gun next to you, especially in Las Vegas. Not promoting gun use, but got some real crazy people here.
Well, here's another story. This is about a 10-year-old girl. Well, something terrible happened to this 10-year-old girl. She actually had braids, but the braids were left in her head for like 2 months, and her mother decided she wasn't going to take the braids out, even though the girl said, hey, you need to wash my hair. The mother just, brushed her off day in, day out.
She also complained, I think she had a headache.
Oh, yeah. She started having headaches. Anyways, the girl had been complaining about having a headache for approximately 2 weeks to her mother, who just brushed it off again, assuming that she had hit her head against the wall or something. Well, one morning, the child again complained to her mother about having a headache while getting ready for school. Again, the mother brushed her off. When the child got to school, she had told her teacher that her head was hurting. The teacher assumed that the braids were too tight in the child's hair and attempted to let the ponytail down. I don't know, a big mistake maybe. When she removed the hairpiece and let the braids loose, there was a spider in the child's hair. The spider had laid eggs in the child's hair, and the spiders were eating her scalp. The child was rushed to the hospital, where she actually later died. This happened in Monroe, Louisiana, and it was all over the news and in the papers for about a week or two. Please, parents, don't leave braids in your child's hair. Make sure you wash your child's hair.
Well, that's grody. There's a lot of stories like that, especially people who go out to like Rwanda or Africa, come back and have like worms or leeches swimming up their urethra.
Have you seen that story on Discovery Channel's been on for like a couple years, Monsters Inside Me?
Yeah.
And there's lots of stories about a woman actually in Venezuela, where she was having headaches. This is a true story, and she went to the doctor, and there was actually maggots that had already eaten half side of her scalp, or her brain. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've seen that episode. There's also one where
that episode.
Well, I did, because there's one where a guy went out swimming, and he was a tourist. I think it was in the Nile. He started swimming, and didn't really take into consideration what they're warning him. Watch out, because it's parasite infested waters. You have animals defecating in there, probably dead Mexican rats in there that look like dogs, and then also you have parasites. If you don't boil the water or, filter out the water, you're liable to catch something. Well, he went there and it came back and started getting really sick. He was sweating profusely and went to the doctors, but they found out that there was really nothing wrong, and they thought it was a fever, really. But finally, they found out that he acquired a flesh-eating disease and was getting eaten from the inside out by a parasite who was basically opening up a candy shop inside him and serving flesh and guts.
But to
their friends.
When he went swimming in the water, it actually went up right into his
his wee-wee.
His wee-wee.
Yeah, that's not a pleasant, feeling. I'm getting chills here. Guard your stuff at all times with a leaf or anything if you go out there, skinny dipping in the African Nile River or the Egyptian, wherever that place is at. All right, let's get into something that terrifies a lot of people, and this has to do with under your bed. All right, it goes throughout. People are very scared to hang their feet over the side of the bed. Why? Because something might grab them. And the reason why it comes from an urban legend, but a lot of movies do portray this, where, you have the kids slowly looking under the bed, and then they mix it in with people under your sheets. Not the adults one, but when it comes to kids, all right? So the story goes like this. A family went on vacation together and checked into a suite at a cheap old hotel. They booked 2 double rooms, one for the husband and wife and one for their children, a boy and a girl. When they got into the room, they both detected a bad odor. The husband called down to the front desk and asked to speak to the manager. He explained that the room smelled very bad and they would like another suite. The manager apologized and told the man that they were all booked because of the convention in town. But he said he was going to send up a maid to the room to clean and try to get rid of that odor. After lunch, the family went back into the rooms. When the kids walked into their rooms, they could still smell the same odor. Again, the father called to the front desk and told the manager that the room still smelled really bad. The manager told the man that there was nothing he can do. So the kids had to spend the night in that room no matter what. The girl and the boy held their noses, trying not to breathe in the stink. Eventually, they got to sleep in, and in the morning, their parents were knocking at the door to wake them up. When they opened the door, their father smelled the stink and decided that they had to get to the bottom of what was causing this horrible smell. So he started searching the entire room for the source of that bad odor. He sniffed the towels, looked down the curtains, and checked the carpet, looked in the closet, everywhere imaginable. As he pulled up the top of the mattress of the bed, the young boy saw there a big hole in the box spring base underneath. He looked down into the base of the bed and came face to face with a horrible sight. There, laying curled up inside the base, was the dead body of the woman. The boy realized that he had slept the night a few inches away from a rotting and decaying corpse. Ugh, grody. Can you imagine that?
I've heard stories about that. There was one particular case about somebody staying in a motel room and there was a dead body underneath.
You know, the thing is, yeah, if I went into a room and it smelled that bad, have you smelled a dead person before?
No.
I have. You ever went to a wake and they try to put like a lot of, flower smell?
Yeah, but that's different from somebody who's rotting.
Well, you could still smell a tinge of what I'm talking about. Or you smell like a dead cat out somewhere, stuff like that. It's very pungent, and it's a smell that's like, ugh. It's very like sickening. Decaying flesh is one of the most strongest smells you can ever smell. But if I ended up going into a room and I walked in and smelled that and downstairs would not give me another room, I want my money back, or you better give me 10,000 air fresheners to hang up in this room. But yeah, a lot of stories of that is now people under the bed, hiding there, grabbing your toes, grabbing your ankles, derives from stories similar to that.
Well, here's another story. This one's about a choking Doberman. A woman who lived in Sydney with this huge Doberman in a little apartment off Maroubra Road. One night, they went out for dinner in a spot of clubbing. By the time they got home, it was late and more than a little drunk. They got in the door and were greeted by the dog. She's talking about her and her cousin, I believe. They got in the door and were greeted by the dog choking to death in the lounge room. The cousin just fainted, but his wife rang the veterinarian, who was an old family friend of hers, and got her to agree to meet her for surgery. The wife drives over and drops off the dog, but decides that she'd better off go home and get her hubby into bed. Or she actually went out with her husband. I'm trying to understand exactly what's going on. She gets home and finally slaps her cousin into consciousness, but he's still drunk. It takes her almost half an hour to get him up the stairs, and then the phone rings. She's tempted to just leave it, but she decides that it must be important or they wouldn't be ringing at late that night. As soon as she picks up the phone, she hears that the vet's voice screaming out, "Thank God I got you in time. Leave the house now. Go." No time to explain, and the vet hangs up. Because she's such an old family friend, the wife trusts her, and she starts getting the hubby down the stairs. So the moral of the story is, I guess there was somebody else in the house while they were out for dinner, and what the dog was choking on was actually a finger. So when they had called the police and the police came over, they found
the guy hiding in the room.
Right, and he had been mauled to death.
With a missing finger. Poor Doberman, but what kind of, was this a miniature pincher? Because I know Dobermans can swallow a whole steak. Surprising that guy ain't losing half his arm.
Yeah, that's true.
So whether I believe Dobermans can eat a lot of fingers, but not just one and choke on it. Unless this Doberman had a very, very small throat. Well, let's get something other grody, and this is ants in the brain. All right, we've been talking about parasites, and it's a big scary thing if you heard the first one. And, but this one, a little boy died because surgeons found ants in his brain. Apparently, this boy had fell asleep with some sweets in his mouth or with some sweets up beside him. Ants soon got to him, and some ants, in fact, crawled into his ear canal, which somehow managed to go into his brain. When he woke up, he did not realize that ants had gone inside his head. After that, he constantly complained about itchiness around his face. His mother brought him to see a doctor, but the doctor could not figure out what was wrong with him. He took an x-ray of the boy, and to his horror, he found a group of ants living in his skull. Since the ants are still alive, the doctor could not operate on them because the ants are constantly moving around. The boy, at last, died due to ants in his brain. So please be careful by leaving stuff beside your bed unless you want to have ants in your brain. There's a lot of stories of this as well as flies laying, food, eggs in your food, and then you eat, and then you have maggot infestation.
How do we go from urban legends to this? I know that's just...
Well, because this is a big one. There's a big one as well. When we go back to the one combing the hair, there's one with a spider living and laying eggs in the woman's ear, spider egg sacs. And while she's combing her hair, they start breaking out of her cheek, and it's a lot of little baby spiders.
Oh, that's a famous urban legend.
Yeah, so that's where it derived from, and this is another case. But like I said, it is true. You can have a larva that's basically laying eggs, especially in your brain. But maggots, I would not think about maggots because they only eat dead flesh.
That's disgusting.
Well, what am I supposed to do? These are the stories that are reporting you.
Well, here's another one. This story is about Carmen Winstead. Carmen was 17 years old when her parents decided to move to Indiana. Her father had lost his job, and the only way he could find new employment was by moving to a new state. The relocation caused a lot of problems for Carmen. She had to leave her friends behind and attended a whole new school in Indiana. Carmen had a hard time adjusting and making friends when she changed schools. It was the middle of the school year, and most of the students had no interest in befriending the new girl. Initially, she spent many days alone, walking from class to class with speaking to no one. But she ended up befriending 5 friends who she thought were her friends. Later on, they started bullying her, and it got so severe. They started doing little pranks, but it got to the point where they were actually beating her up. And she was going to stay after school one day to tell her teacher what was going on. And what happened was that same day they were doing a fire drill, and the 5 students said, you know what, there is a pothole right where we're going to do the fire drill when we go outside, so let's push her inside or try to scare her. Well, what happened is that they ended up pushing her inside, and when she actually snapped her neck, and there's a ladder that goes down there, she ripped her face apart. Well, the urban legend goes is that I guess 3 months later, the girl who actually pushed her down this, I guess, flight of stairs into this hole ended up dying the same way. And then the 4 other girls ended up dying tragic deaths as well in Indiana. That's
called karma. Karma. Never push anybody down a manhole because it's going to come back. But that's the whole thing. See, with that story, I believe it's not an urban legend.
That's more like an angry ghost, vengeful, a vengeful spirit.
Well, that would be the one who was deceased first. There was the one coming back to rectify the people who killed her and basically kill them as well. There's story. See, but that is for real, because in these days we have bullies like that. But it's not now that the person being bullied is killed by the bullier. They end up committing suicide because it's just too much to handle, especially this day and age where vanity in high school is the norm of stuff like that.
So do you think that a lot of these urban legends are, derived from true stories, that they just got twisted over and over again?
Well, a lot of these urban legends, like I say, are folklore, probably to the town they derive from. But over a time, they get twisted a little bit. A little things get added here. Something just gets fluffed up, so it makes it look more appealing as they tell the story. It catches the listener's attention. But sometimes the story people make up actually do happen as time progresses down the line, and it becomes a full-fledged, real bona fide, story, and it's not urban legend anymore. My favorite one is the paint thinner one. I've said it so many times on the show, and this is actually where it's not an urban legend. It's actually an origin that has a past to something paranormal, something very creepy, and this is paint thinner. A lot of people don't realize where paint thinner comes from. Well, what happened was this boy was living with his parents, and this guy had a real crush on his mom, who was a school teacher. And one day when the son was away, the person at the high school had a crush on the school teacher, killed his mom, tried to rape her and killed both his mom and his dad at the house that they lived in where he left. Well, later on he came back and, he was so sad that he lost his parents. The guy got convicted for murder. But
this happened in the late 1800s, by the way.
Yeah, so the son comes back home and he's living at the parents' house where the parents died. And he starts hearing these ghostly sounds and banging on the walls. And he figures that either it's his parents or the killer himself who is there to haunt him. So because this guy was a good chemist, he decided that he's going to make a concoction in his basement that will get rid of spirits. So over I think a period of a month, he's in his basement, burning his eyelashes off with all these ingredients. And finally he came up with something where if he threw it on the walls, it would smell so pungent. And not only that, the paint would melt off with the this whole, it looked like an apparition on the wall, the smear. So he thought he killed ghosts, and the smell was the smell of dead ghosts. So he goes out and he markets this concoction to people in the paranormal for people who have ghosts in their house. So you have people out there that's throwing this stuff on their walls, but they're getting crazy because the fumes are very strong. Like we all know paint thinner.
Yeah, but what did he call this?
So what happens, he called it ghost haunting. So what happens, his friend who was in a high school, not high school, but university with him before he came back, also invented something, and it was called paint. So his friends showed him what he concocted, and the guy who invented paint was like, oh my God, this works good to remove paint. So he ends up buying out the company from his friend, and then he calls it paint thinner. So he sells his paint, and he gives a bottle of this to everybody who purchases a gallon of paint. And to this day, this is where we get paint thinner, and it comes from the paranormal. It's not an urban legend, and it's more of an origin type of thing, but that's one of the things that blows me away. And then you have other ones where Manwich got its name from, and all this other crazy stuff.
MGM?
Yeah, MGM.
The Lion.
MGM's a good one, the Lion's Roar. There's a lot out there that will make you think when you hear the story, because everyday objects and things that you see you take for granted, but then you realize one small thing in your life that you use every day thinking it's maybe just toothpaste.
I was just gonna say toothpaste, and you said that.
Yeah, maybe you're reading my mind. Are you trying to say I have to brush my teeth or something?
No, I was just thinking that. But go ahead.
But yeah, so there is a lot of urban legends out there, and then there's a lot that are folklore that can go all the way back to ancient times. I can also include Atlantis into this, the gods and all this. But like I said, we are just sticking to the creepy stuff. Spiders and all that grody stuff, under the bed ghosts. But let me tell you something before we go off. My scariest thing is when I have to walk downstairs at night and it's dark. I'm not afraid of the dark. Like I said, I'm afraid of what's in the dark. I'm not afraid of the dead. I'm more afraid of the living because they could do more damage than anything. But I'm more afraid of when it's dark and I know there's a doorway there and the door is open and I walk past it. I'm scared somebody's going to grab me and pull me through because I had nightmares of that when I was a kid. And that's very scary. What's your scary thing, Lindsay?
Do I have time to say?
Yeah, real quick.
What's my scary thing?
Gremlins? What is it?
I don't know. Nothing really scares me.
Oh God, we got a trooper here. Got a trooper.
I can't think of anything that scares me.
All right. Well, tell us when we come back here Monday, and we'll have more scary and conspiratorial stories for you to hear as we share them to you live Monday when we return right here on the Paranormal and Beyond. Everybody have a great weekend and take care.